This all stems from testimony at a bond revocation hearing. The judge revoked the defendant's bond in that case, but plenty of questions remain. It's uncontroverted that Horatio Stewart was inside a Mississippi casino and a Saraland shoe store. It's also uncontroverted that a judge had ordered him to remain under house arrest, except for narrow exceptions, while he was waiting to go on trial on murder and attempted murder charges. What's generated controversy is a third fact that both prosecutors and his lawyer agree on. The company assigned to monitor his movements with electronic monitoring told Stewart he was okay.
This case with Horatio Stewart is one of the most egregious that I've seen, and I just think it's reprehensible that a company promises to monitor someone by a judge's order, and then they allow them to do so many things in violation of the judge's order.
Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood says he's pushing for tighter regulations or for the state to take over responsibility for running the court system's electronic monitoring program. Stewart is accused of gunning down Jabyron Nichols and wounding the victim's girlfriend, Jalacia Smith, while they were in a car at Maison de Ville Apartments on Christmas Eve. Mobile County District Judge Jennifer Wright in April granted bond, but required Stewart to remain at home except for things like working or meeting with his lawyer. The judge assigned responsibility for outfitting him with an electronic bracelet to a company called AccuPoint, which has a listed address on Government Street. Defense attorney Chase Dearman says it's frustrating that his client is back in jail since he did what AccuPoint told him to do.
They're told that if you want to leave your house, you have to call or text, and you have to get approval ahead of time. And he had the approval.
Prosecutors moved last week to revoke Stewart's bond after learning of the violations. DA Blackwood says monitoring companies have a financial incentive not to report violations because they make money only when defendants are out of jail.
There was a complete lack of effort to follow the judge's order. The judge had ordered the defendant to be on house arrest, and under the supervision of this ankle monitoring company, he was allowed to go to Biloxi to casinos. He was allowed to go buy shoes for himself.
Dearman says Stewart briefly went into the casino to eat lunch, but left as soon as the monitor told him to. He says his client also had permission to buy shoes for his daughter.
But how was he supposed to know? He was also told to do what the monitoring service told him to do.
There wasn't anyone at the office listed for AccuPoint when I went there today. We'll keep trying to get them, and we'll report their side of the story when we hear it.
Private ankle monitoring company is under fire again tonight after a man is accused of committing murder while he was out on bond. Now the private company is identified as AccuPoint, and I'm told this isn't the first time this type of error has happened.
Just the absolute worst case scenario that everyone in the community dreads.
How many times is it going to take for a person to kill someone? Just like the second time. How many chances is he going to get?
A lot of questions surrounding how a Mobile man who was supposed to be monitored was able to allegedly commit murder. Nyon Sanders is sitting in Metro Jail tonight, accused of shooting Joseph Evans Jr. at Dolphin Gate Apartments. According to District Attorney Keith Blackwood, Sanders was on bond for a separate murder and was wearing an ankle monitor.
From what I understand, Sanders allowed his ankle monitor to go dead after 5 p.m. And within 4 hours had committed the murder.
News the victim's family wasn't happy to hear.
When I got there, all I just seen my son was laying there. And I said, please, son, get up. And he never would move. It'd be the third time for someone family to go through what me and the first family that went through. So I hope, justice has been served.
Court documents say bond has been revoked for not only Sanders, but his brother. According to court documents, Sanders and his brother Kevin are co-defendants in the 2022 murder of D'Angelo Wallace. Court documents say the brothers were together during both of these alleged crimes. Blackwood calls this a failure by the private ankle monitoring system. He says the company wouldn't have been alerted that Sanders' battery died until 8 a.m. the next morning.
At another case where you've got a private ankle monitoring company that's tasked with monitoring someone that's out on bond, that did not happen in this case, and this defendant is alleged to have committed yet another murder.
Presiding Circuit Court Judge Wesley Pipe says they've had problems with AccuPoint before. Last month, a murder defendant on bond was granted permission to go to a Biloxi casino by AccuPoint. According to Judge Pipes, this was not an approved location. Blackwood says he's ready for the sheriff's office to take over, but it all boils down to money.
It all comes down to funding for a law enforcement agency to be able to take this task on. They have to have personnel to do that. They have to have the equipment. The sheriff's office is, again, ready, willing, and able to take this on.
Judge Pipes tells me it's certainly an option that they'll be cutting ties with AccuPoint in the near future, but they're exploring all their options right now. Jennifer and Bill Vallon have overseen AccuPoint, a private ankle monitoring company, for the last year. Well, recently, they've come under scrutiny after a man on bond allegedly let his ankle monitor die and then committed a murder. Well, they didn't want to go on camera out of fear of retaliation, but they tell me there's a lot more to the story.
This is a heartbreaking circumstance. If I could have kept him charging his watch, if I could have stopped that or showed up at his house, I would have. I can't imagine what the family's going through right now.
Emotional words coming from Jennifer Vallon after a deadly shooting in Mobile last week. On Wednesday, Mobile police arrested Nyon Sanders and charged him with murder in the death of Joseph Evans Jr. According to court documents, Sanders was on bond for a 2022 murder and wearing an ankle monitor. Investigators say he let the battery die before the crime happened. The company that monitors Sanders is called AccuPoint. Supervisor Jennifer Vallon says she started getting notifications that his watch was dying.
When it started to die, we sent multiple alerts stating your watch is dying, put it on a charger. When it got closer, then it was critical warnings, which it buzzes harder on the watch. We start calling, we send messages. We try to get in touch with the individual and let them know they're in violation.
Vallon says after they've done everything they can to get in touch with someone in violation, they don't have the authority to decide what happens next.
Unfortunately, our hands are tied. We're not able to go and just arrest them at that point when their watch dies. We've tried to ask what we can do, and the only thing we can do is send in the report. We'll usually contact the bonding company and we contact the district attorney's office, but we don't have the authority to just show up and pick them up, because then we'd be charged with kidnapping.
Jennifer and Bill say they both made numerous attempts to fix this problem and have even reached out to the district attorney's office. I'm told no one will get back with them or communicate what the proper procedure is.
I mean, we've tried to communicate with Mr. Blackwood too many times to count. He has yet to meet with us. He won't tell us anything. And after another incident that happened, we even tried harder to communicate. Then he finally responded one time and said, get with his assistant to schedule a meeting. Well, then we still didn't get any response, nothing. He has yet to speak with us. And now he's saying that this is our fault or that we did not monitor. I mean, that has to fall back on him, because he could have given us a new protocol at any time.
Now, both Jennifer and Bill say they don't want to see something like this happen again. Now, in the meantime, the bond for Nyon Sanders has been revoked.
Continues over lapses in electronic monitoring. First brought to light by Fox 10 News.
And as we talked about last week, Mobile County Sheriff Paul Burge has agreed to take the responsibility for monitoring defendants who are out on bond if he can find the money for it. It's a story our investigative team has been following.
And Brendan, it all comes down to money.
Yeah, it does, Cameron and Lenise. The sheriff estimates that the startup costs would be around $1.6 million for the equipment and hiring 6 deputies, a director, and a civilian analyst. There appears to be an agreement emerging for the Mobile County Commission and the City of Mobile to split those costs, but there's nothing final just yet. Greg Wood, the operations manager of Pegasus Monitoring Services, spent Monday working to integrate at least 82 additional people to the defendants his company already provides electronic monitoring for. One of 3 private companies that performed those duties is out of business, and the court system's judges have stopped using a second company, AccuPoint, after allegations that a Mobile man out on bond for murder committed a second murder. Wood has received dozens of these orders handed down by judges, transferring cases to him due to recent events. But if Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood and the judges have their way, the extra work for Pegasus will be temporary. They intend for the Mobile County Sheriff's Office to take over these duties. A spokesman for Mayor Sandy Stimson says that the administration has agreed to split the cost, but that the council would have to approve it. County Commissioner Connie Hudson says that there's questions about insurance liability, but she says she's open to it.
We're going to do everything within our power to help with that, because we do recognize it as a public safety need. And so, but we just have to understand what we're agreeing to.
Electronic monitoring companies already had been under scrutiny before this month's murder. Fox 10 News previously highlighted murder defendant Horatio Stewart, who, according to testimony, got permission from AccuPoint to go to a Saraland shoe store against the judge's orders. The tipping point came earlier this month when prosecutors allege Nyan Sanders let his ankle monitor battery die before allegedly shooting Joseph Evans Jr. at Dolphin Gate Apartments. D.A. Blackwood says the battery went dead at about 5:15 p.m., but that AccuPoint didn't alert law enforcement because it was after hours.
I was told that the monitoring company would not have even known about it until 8 a.m. the next morning. That's just unacceptable. We need to have these defendants that are out on bond for the safety of the community. They need to be monitored 24 hours a day so that law enforcement can respond if they violate the conditions that they're monitoring.
We can only do what we're allowed to do legally.
AccuPoint says that they've tried to get clarification on the protocol for these type of instances, but never got feedback from the DA's office. Sheriff Birch says he's already making plans to take over the responsibility. He says law enforcement has advantages over even well-run private companies.
We can take immediate action and arrest them once they're located. So they won't have to wait on a notification to, say, the DA's office or whatever the current process is.
Wood, the Pegasus operations director, didn't want to go on camera, but he tells me that the company formed during the pandemic when there was a push to release inmates from jail for health reasons. He says the company will continue to perform services in other counties, but he adds that it was never intended to be a permanent solution. Now, as for AccuPoint's claims that the DA's office never got back with them regarding protocol, the DA's office say that they have spoken with AccuPoint. We're trying to get clarification on the details about whether that protocol was put in place.
New information tonight on a Fox 10 News investigation. It's the controversy surrounding electronic monitoring of criminal defendants out on bond.
And this is something our investigative team has been digging into for the past several weeks here. Brendan Kirby uncovering another case involving an electronic monitoring company that is under scrutiny.
And Brendan, this one involves a Mobile man charged in a shooting in the Birdville community.
Yeah, that's right, Cameron and Lenise. LaMarcus Boggs is one of several people charged in that shooting on Duval Street in October. Last year, it injured 3 teenagers. While he was out on bond, police say that they pulled over a car he was riding in with guns. A judge eventually revoked his bond, but it's what happened or didn't happen leading up to the revocation that has us pressing for answers. Court records show that Mobile police pulled over a black Ford Mustang without a license plate traveling west on Pleasant Valley Road on January 13th. Officers seized several guns, including a loaded AR-style pistol they say was in arm's reach of LaMarcus Boggs in the back seat of the vehicle. At the time, Boggs was out on bond under electronic monitoring on assault charges related to an October 2023 shooting near R.V. Taylor Plaza. The Mobile County District Attorney's Office says AccuPoint, the company tasked with monitoring Boggs, didn't report a violation. Prosecutors say they eventually found out about the violation from the detective in the shooting case. The DA's office filed a motion 11 days after the traffic stop, and police arrested Boggs for violating his bond. Local leaders are now working on a plan that would allow the sheriff's office to take over electronic monitoring from private companies. Mobile County District Attorney Keith Blackwood says that one of the reasons is that the monitoring companies don't always catch violations in real time.
That is the perception, that immediately when somebody on an ankle monitor goes outside the zone that all these bells and whistles are going to go off, but that hasn't been the case. It certainly hasn't been the case with these companies.
At a bond revocation hearing in March, according to the DA's office, AccuPoint's Jennifer Vallon testified that Boggs had permission to attend a funeral service that day because it fell under an exception to house arrest for religious services. The DA's office says having the sheriff's office in charge of electronic monitoring should give law enforcement officers immediate access to bond restrictions when they encounter defendants during traffic stops. Sent this handwritten letter to the judge last month asking that he reconsider his bond ruling, but we're told that the judge didn't read that letter because communications should come from the defendant's lawyer. Mobile Police didn't immediately respond to my request for information about the Boggs case and whether his bond status would have been available to the officer making the traffic stop.